Romans, Scorekeepers, lend me your earbuds. Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Rocky, and it is yesterday, Thursday, July 8th. Just wanted to come at the top of the show to y'all, and actually, funny story. Lee and Paige and I are all on vacation this week. So we are coming at you with a bit of an abbreviated episode this week. So first, we were lucky enough to be joined by our first real live full-time opera singer, the amazing Asian American tenor Andrew Stenson, who has sung all over the world, all over the country, has been a part of tons of incredible, prestigious productions, including here at Minnesota Opera. If some of you were around for that very cold production of Italian Straw Hat a few years ago, which we do talk about. But he is here to really give us a perspective that we haven't had on the show before, which is super exciting for us. Somebody who is really out there performing and sort of navigating spaces as a person of color and a performer in this industry. It was really illuminating to hear that perspective, and I do hope that we are able to have more performers on the show and have more music for you, so stay tuned for that. And then, well, this is where things get a little bit dicey. So you're probably wondering, I mentioned the date because, as I said, we are on vacation this week. So we recorded both of these segments quite some time ago, and so we were thinking, well, we have to have a Pure Black Joy because we always have a Pure Black Joy because it is important for us to always, no matter what we are talking about, whether we're talking about something really hard or something really fun and light, that we always end the show on a joyful note. And so we were thinking, well, what's something that, is kind of evergreen? Oh, we know, the Olympics. Like, there's not going to be any reason for the Olympics to get canceled. There won't be any racisms at the Olympics, surely. So between the banning of any political statements, including Black Lives Matter, and the banning of the swim caps, and the disqualification of the Namibian runners, and the various disqualifications on the USA track and field team, including the incredible, amazing Sha'Carri Richardson. Well, it might sound like we have been living under a rock for the last month. If you didn't know that we recorded that segment quite some time ago. And so we just wanted to, keep part of it in because we still do want to support the Black athletes who are competing this year. But, recognizing, I'm sure at the top of the next episode, we will be talking about some of the issues that have transpired over the last couple of weeks, which are making us really sad. So, there's a lot of talk about not watching the Olympics, boycotting the Olympics. Of course, we appreciate those standpoints and completely understand. But also, I believe in part of that segment that was cut, I did say, direct quote, that if Sha'Carri Richardson does not win a gold medal, I will be heartbroken. And I can say with certainty that I am. So, we just want to, I'm sure I can speak for Paige and Lee when I say that we love you, Sha'Carri, and we are rooting for you no matter what. If there is, frankly, if you can, smoke a joint and then go out and run a sub 1100 meters, you deserve all the gold medals. Like, take it from the shot putter and the javelin and the hurdles or whatever and give them all. to that person. But, this is all jokes aside, it's a crappy situation, and an even crappier rule. And we are proud of you, Sha'Carri. We love you and the way that you are handling this unjust decision with such grace in class. And we can't wait to watch you in your next race. And thank you so much for inspiring us all at the trials. And when you get on the track, you are that girl. So just wanted to just say all that up top. And I'm going back to my vacation. All right, y'all. See you in a couple weeks and enjoy the show. Bye-bye. Hearing right now are the beautiful singing of our next guest, Mr. Andrew Stenson, who is quickly building a reputation as one of the United States' most exciting young tenors, with a brilliant tone and artistic intellect and superb portrayals of a variety of roles. He is an alum of a number of prestigious young artist opera programs here in the US, including Glimmerglass and Seattle Opera and the Met and the Marola program at a San Francisco Opera. He has performed all over the place in the last few years at Lyric Opera of Chicago, San Francisco Symphony, the Wexford Festival Opera, Dallas, Philadelphia Orchestra, St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, Opera Colorado, all over the place, and internationally as well. But many of you Minnesota Opera fans would likely remember him from 2019's The Italian Straw Hat, where he played the put-upon Fatinard, running around town trying to get that hat, and which I remember as the coldest experience of my life. I don't know about you, Andrew. I know you are a Minnesota native, so maybe you're used to this, but...
I love Minnesota winter. I love it when
really?
Negative outside. I love when you can't survive for more than 30 seconds outside. The wind chill's so bad. I love digging cars out of snow. I don't know what it is. I think it's so satisfying.
Are you seriously? But that was beyond the pale. Lee, you weren't here when that happened.
But it was like, here.
I mean, it was because what was so funny about that was that for whatever reason, the promo for Italian Straw Hat is like, back when I was communications manager, it is the #1 most viewed YouTube video on the Minnesota Opera channel, like by a mile. So we were like, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be such a hit. Everyone's super into this. And like the day of like opening night, it was just like 30 below zero.
And, God.
And the governor was like, nobody leave your homes. You're all going to die. Just like, okay, well, that's that.
We still had like a half house that night.
You did.
I was very pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. Well, Minnesotans, they don't let a little bit of cold stop them.
Yeah.
Especially once you get used to it. You're like, this isn't going to stop my life.
I suppose I will be the outlier.
Yes.
Well, I've been gone long enough too that when I come back during the winter, it's you go outside and it's petrifying.
Oh,
like
God.
It stuns you in your tracks sometimes, which is really fun still.
But what's kind of amazing though is like now when I go home to DC and it's like 45 degrees in January and everybody's like in their parkas and I'm just like walking around in a t-shirt and they're like, oh my God, what did they do? Well, Andrew, we want to thank you so much for being here, for being on the show with us. And you have sung in so many different places. Your career has taken off in so many ways, but as an Asian American opera singer, like how has that your racial or ethnic identity shaped your career journey in opera?
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? When I started out, I thought, I've been told, you have a lyric voice. Some people thought I was going to sing Verdi. Some people thought I should sing Mozart. But I started thinking, oh, maybe it'll just be really easy if I break my way in being a character tenor. And sometimes when you start to reinforce certain stereotypes, people really love to, grab it by the neck and run with it. Mm-hmm. And so that I had people saying like, oh, well, you're short, you're Asian, you can sing like character stuff and like some short tenor roles. And I embraced that for a solid couple of years, I think, through grad school. And then in a random audition, I got cast. I got in the Santa Fe Young Artist Program in 2009. And I remember coaching the Petrarch sonnets in a room adjacent to kind of like the administrative rooms. And David Holloway, who's the director at the time, barges into my coaching and he's like, you are a lyric tenor. Shuts the door.
Well, okay.
and because of being fortunate enough to get that experience at Santa Fe, I auditioned for it was Glimmerglass Opera at the time in 2010, and they were doing The Tenderland, and I thought there is absolutely no way in hell that they're going to cast a yellow kid in this white heartland opera. And so I sang character stuff. I would sing like Frisch zum Kampfe and take my shoe off and wave it angrily at the end and had this whole thing. And then they asked me to sing, I had Romeo on my list too, and they asked me to sing that. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I just want to sing Basilio, but sure, great. And then I get a call from Don Marazzo a few weeks later, and it's like, we really enjoyed your audition. We'd like to offer you Martin in the Tenderland. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. That was the last thing I was expecting. So I had been very fortunate to get lucky early on and have, there's a lot of talk right now about gatekeepers, but I was on the positive side maybe of that in certain ways, that the right people said that I am a lyric tenor. Somebody I auditioned for in 2009 who told me, to do the short tenor repertoire and do character repertoire. I won one of the Tucker study grants in 2011, and I auditioned for them again. And then she was clearly like, oh, of course you're a lyric tenor. So it's interesting how people can get a certain idea in their heads, and it takes a lot to change their minds. And sometimes it takes the influence of other gatekeepers, powerful people, whatever it may be, to change those opinions. And that unfortunately has been a pretty constant struggle, and needing to prove yourself the next place that you go. You're not just, another, or like the short Asian tenor or something, and they have like preconceived notions with that. You have to really kind of like, yes, I'm a lyric tenor, I can be a leading guy.
So one of the other things that we've talked a lot about on this podcast has been the idea that as a way of dealing with that really intense gatekeeping, especially for those of us of color, that mentorship and sort of lineages of mentorship are really powerful ways of circumventing that. And we have had a composer, Nkiro Okoye, who's been a great mentor to me on, and her mentor, Dr. Adolphus Hailstork, has also been on. And one of my favorite things that happened last month during AAPI Heritage Month was when we had the opportunity to profile a group of Asian American artists. Brian Vu actually cited you as being someone who has been so influential to his career. And I would love to hear you talk a little bit more about the role of mentoring for you personally. Who has really helped you figure out what it is that you want to do, and how do you pay that forward to other folks?
You know, it's really interesting when in a lot of panels and discussions with colleagues and other colleagues of color, and my Asian colleagues especially, is that we have not had hardly any role models in the industry coming up. The only people I knew about when I was coming up were Hae Kyung Hong and Sumi Jo, and that was it. So in turn, like the looking for a singer, a tenor of color who's definitely faced adversity, like, you know, Larry Brownlee was my guy coming up. And I've been fortunate enough to work with him, to work alongside him, to see a lot of his work, to have many discussions with him. And Larry is a shining example of how to get it done, especially when there are many people in the world who want to say no. Larry also happens to be one of the most competitive people I have ever met. And boy, that guy likes to win, and he does win, and he's fantastic, but he doesn't make any excuses for himself. He does the work. He's like, I know people are going to be questioning my languages left and right, so I'm just going to become fluent in Italian. You know, I know that people are going to be waiting for you to fail at something so they can latch on to something, and he never gives them the opportunity. You know, is there something to work on? Do I need to lose some weight? Do I need to go on a diet? Great, I'll do that. You know, do I need to brush up my languages better? Great, I'll do that. You know, etc. Do I need to learn how to act better? I'm going to get better at that, etc., etc., etc. Nothing gets in that guy's way. And
Wow.
he told a lot of people who were looking to say no to him, and he made such an overwhelming case that they couldn't. They had to say yes because he is basically the best in the world.
And I think that's often a huge part of the story of, you know, people of color, those individuals who are the first or one of the first, like that's the thing, right? That's how you combat those arguments around excellence. You just have to run circles around everybody else. C note, Leontine Price.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I remember as a kid, I went to this very sort of, you know, quote unquote, elite sort of prestigious private school in the DC area. And I had this one teacher I remember as my 10th grade English teacher. And my mom came back from a parent teacher conference. The only time I've ever heard her refer to anyone as a blue-eyed devil. But he just hated me on sight because I just was like, you know, smart and like driven and sort of interested in the material and in challenging him. And he gave me a C on a paper once that was not a C paper. And that was that moment that I was just like, you know what? I'm going to, from now on, like make everything just unimpeachable. Like will have no choice but to give me an A. So like that story just completely resonates with me. I'm no Larry Brownlee, obviously, but maybe I will be.
The one thing too, the flip side of that too is for especially like people of color to trailblaze in this industry, you must not only you must be exceptional to sit at the level playing field.
Yeah.
You know, and that is an incredible burden.
I mean, so much pressure.
So much. Yeah. We've talked about that. And I mean, I've heard people in all sectors of the performing arts talk about that, even among us administrators as well, and feeling like there's so few or there's a scarcity, mindset of, what you have to compete for, and then having, tough skin because, you're scrutinized that much more. And I was going to ask a different question, but now I'm curious, like, what do you do? What do you do to stay grounded, like in dealing with that pressure? Or, you know, what do you come back to build yourself back up? And even if it's other people or colleagues, like, what does that look like for you?
For me personally, I've talked to a lot of colleagues about this stuff too. Everyone in the arts, they have like those handful of experiences, those shows that for me personally, I always feel like I'm doing my best work, and I feel the best at work when I feel like I'm part of a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that we as an ensemble, a cast, a company, et cetera, we can say something with one voice, and that everyone feels equal, that no person is more important or less important than the other, that we all depend on each other. And knowing that some people have your back, and that are able, when you can't lift any longer, you know someone else will be able to lift. That is all the comfort in the world as a performer to me, no matter how hard it gets. And that's always the kind of thing, you know, one of the greatest things I felt like I've ever been a part of was to be a part of Candide. And Candide has like magic powers for some reason. And it was such an intense show. And the moment downbeat happened, you were just running, going. It was like doing a musical. You just have no time to breathe. You have no time to think of your lines. You maybe have time for a glug of water. And then you just go to the next scene, you know, and you see it because Candy is front and center most of the time. But every other person in the cast is furiously changing, running left and right, moving set pieces, etc. And if something does get moved or something does get locked, somebody could get hurt, and you have to have a lot of trust in everyone else as well to make it happen. And when we are just kind of going, and we get to Garden at the end, we all take a big pause, we all look out, and we say something together. And that metaphorically, I guess, for the piece, but also from the literal work that we're doing, that the struggle for something like that is worth it when you have people to share that experience with. And so facing these things in certain environments, knowing that you have people in the world who will face those struggles with you, you know, that's like, as we continue to develop our Asian community in the industry, you know, Vu was in that showing Candide, and I remember talking like that panel with Theater Mu. It's such an event for me personally to be in a show with other Asian people that, you know, Kristen Choi is Pat Cat, and she's like a sister to me. You know, I've just had the opportunity to bond with these people so much, and I feel very close to them, and I feel like we are in this fight together, and that's a reason to keep going and a reason to get up in the morning. I hope that answers your question. Sorry, long-winded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It definitely does. It definitely does. But I've experienced the same. You know, it makes a difference when you can. I guess that is one of the benefits of like what we do. You're always doing it with a team, unless you're like severely doing a one-man show, as in you're doing the lighting and sound and everything too, which I have yet to see. I'm sure it's out there. But yeah, same. Like, just that you ultimately at the end of the day, like, you can't create this piece alone, and so you create the community always. Yeah.
Well, one thing that I think is so interesting that you know, on this topic of community, you know, I know that for us, definitely, you know, sort of the events of the past year have really created more opportunities for us to sort of be around more Black folks and more Black artists and creating. And do you find that you've had that same experience, like that more opportunities have been created for you to work with more Asian artists?
I still think those opportunities are few and far between. I know that the Asian artists are starting to mobilize now, seeing also the success of the mobilization from our Black colleagues and the difference and the impact that's being made right now. That is very inspiring to us as a community as well. And it's great to see like the way being paved and that we know and see what's happening right now, that there is a path to gaining greater equity, to at least being seen, to at least address issues in a public forum and get people to listen.
And, you have to hope, with everything inside of you, right, that it's not just a paving of the way, but it's also going to be a walk in solidarity, right? Because we are all so adversely affected by these issues. And I think the only real way out of it is if we're all sort of mobilizing around the idea that we're here too, check your demographics, right? And we are creators and we are audience members, and we want to see ourselves represented in the art, across levels. And maybe to that point, I'd love to know, do you have any advice, right, for the Andrew Stensons who are out there starting their careers or even contemplating whether or not there is space for me in this art form that I've fallen in love with?
That is a very good question. I'm already seeing a greater pool now. And social media being what it is, you get more access to people, but I'm seeing a greater pool of like young Asian tenors up and coming, and people who are really, 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 really talented. And they're getting traction. They're getting, I think there's still barriers towards opportunity, but at the very least, I see a bigger pool and I see more faces in your artist programs. And I would tell those people to keep going, because I feel like we're getting there. We're getting step by step by step. The more of us there are, the more talent there is, the harder it is to deny that there is talent. I'm still waiting to see a generation of Asian headliners at the Met. I'm still waiting to see the Met make the conscious decision to turn an Asian singer into a star.
Yeah.
But I think for like Brian Boot, Brian Boot's got it all. That guy's a great singer. He's a hunk. Like, he is the kind of person that could be the face of this moving forward, I think. And we're seeing more and more people pop up. So I hope it's only a matter of time.
Hunky. Hunk of burning love. You had me at hunk.
I wish I could look like that. I don't think any amount of years of starving and years of going to the gym would ever make me look like Brian.
I am trying. If you could see behind me, this pancake breakfast we've been in the last year, I've been stuck in my dumbbells, doing my best. But speaking of this, pando that we've been in for so long, it has affected so many facets of society, just broken open the fissures. And of course, we all know, the API community in particular has been so adversely affected. And so I'm just curious, what has your experience been in this pandemic? And has that sort of changed the way that you're approaching your art?
It has made me look back at everything. And, I grew up in Southeast Minnesota. I would go to Minneapolis a lot. I have friends that live west of Hiawatha, and there was just so much to re-examine looking back in my life, how I acted, how people I knew acted, the community that I grew up in, and how this state as a whole. There's this idea that like non-confrontation is a virtue, and that
like for real, it's like it's so confusing to me.
And to finally have that thrust in their faces that you can't ignore this, that this ignoring it doesn't make it go away, that you can't remove yourself from this, and you're trying to remove yourself from it or not talk about the difficult things, et cetera, is only making it worse, a lot worse. And it's been really interesting to see Minnesota and all the cacophony of white Minnesotans that I know have to examine this and have to deal with it. And, a lot of them are starting to, at the very least, break down that wall of, well, I talk about it, therefore it doesn't exist.
Yeah. And, I think it's interesting because those of us who've spent considerable amounts of time in the DMV are probably some of the most conflict forward people that you will meet. Like the idea of not having a conversation because it's hard is totally foreign to me, right? And moving, from academia into this kind of a space, both in the opera and also in Minnesota, where that isn't quite the mode, has been an incredible learning experience. And because I follow you on social media, I feel like I already have a sense of what your answer to this is going to be. But why do you think that the opera in particular is so behind the curve with regards to progressive issues? And what can and should activism look like in a space like the one we currently inhabit?
It's interesting because in some ways, at least prior to the discussions that we've been having recently, opera was maybe ahead of the curve for some time. But maybe because it's nonprofit, maybe it's because, there's a lot of old guard that's gatekeeping, running everything, kind of dictating policy. It's not, times are changing very fast. And Hollywood keeps up with it in some ways just because it's profitable. That representation right now is selling. And I would love to see opera get on board with that. I think we are at the precipice of something where we're going to need to start bringing in new money to the industry. Yeah. And I think the panacea to that is representation oriented. Why we need, there's a whole generation of wealthy people of color coming up that are going to want to spend money, see people that look like them, and to secure interests for those who look like them, to create another generation or to create the first generation of BIPOC excellence. And why would they spend any money to enter a hostile environment? Why would they spend any amount of money to try and enter an environment that's going to look at them funny? Why are you here? Without something substantial in return. And I think that something is representation. And I think that will pave the way for the future of the industry, pave the way for greater equity, and just make in some cases, a tired old art form new again.
Absolutely. There's such a, and I never say it to say, we should change because money, but there's an amazing business case for it. Like there just really is. I think Black Panther and the release of that film will always be the biggest C moment for everybody. Like the most popular film worldwide. Like, and what it took was like fully investing in a whole crew of Black artists, from wardrobe to director, and it's like, see what we can do when we're well resourced, and everyone loved it. Everyone was, whether you personally relate or whether you're Black, whether you're African or not, everyone was like, this is amazing because it's genuine and it makes this group of people feel proud. And I want to see that for everybody else as well. Like I think we take for granted how much we want to connect with each other's stories too. Like I want to see different stories, and they don't necessarily have to be Black. I want to see all marginalized groups properly represented. I would pay money. And there are multiple people saying, here, we have the money. Just give us the story. So yeah. You're so right. And I am also curious about just what do you see else that like classical music organizations could be doing besides just the programming, or what we see on stage, I guess, or what audiences see. You may have heard our episode. We were talking all kinds of things about process. And I want to hear your thoughts on that. Like, what else can, especially people in our position as arts administrators, what we can be doing?
One thing that I have been discussing quite a bit is the idea of people who debut at a house in race-specific casting. We're seeing representation-oriented media being a huge seller for companies. Porgy and Bess is the show, I think, to add performances, and first show to add performances in how long at the Met? That is making them bundles of money. And it boggles my mind that Freddie Ballantine can make such a splash as Sport and Life, and they are not announcing that he's coming back for something immediately.
I've been wondering.
That does not
him specifically.
Yeah, that does not compute with me at all. This guy is a star. So why isn't he headlining something immediately after? They brought Akhenaten back like that. There's the power to do it. And we've heard so many stories from all sorts of singers of color about getting pigeonholed in in race-specific casting. Freddie is so much, he's great at Sport and Life, but he's also so much more. He sings Don Jose, he sings all sorts of stuff, and he sings it wonderfully. But when you debut at a house and your performance is your best audition, so to speak, and they only see you as something very limited, be it in new repertoire that doesn't necessarily showcase legato singing even, or something that's in English so they can't comprehend, a person of color singing Italian well, or whatnot, or it's like a really weird stylized show, so you might not be able to show off your acting chops and whatnot. And how work at these houses is so important, because if you sing Don Jose at the Met, you will never ever have to audition for Don Jose ever again. And if somebody has been clearly deemed worthy of singing a leading role at a major house like that, why are they not also worthy of immediately turning around and singing like Marcello, Rodolfo, that kind of thing, something that people debut in all the time, that you come in for a week and just boom. And that's to kind of get them acclimated to a house, so, and the traps that come with that. That's a big thing I would love to see, is when somebody comes in to a house, like let's say I debuted at Opera Theater of St. Louis in the show An American Soldier, which was much lower than a lot of the stuff that I've done. It's in English, very loud. In a lot of ways, it's dissonant. There is some really beautiful singing in moments as well, but it's very, very specific, and it's very hard to get an idea of what else could this person do with something that's so specialized. And it's not, I don't think it should be the artist's responsibility to display that I would also be a good Thurando in a highly special, find a way to somehow do that during a highly specialized show. That when people essentially are doing a favor, being a part of something that they can be pigeonholed in, should they not also be given an opportunity to showcase themselves beyond something so hyper specific?
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm just curious, in your experience so far, have you encountered any houses that are maybe not getting it right, but approaching getting it right? And what are some of the things about those houses that you have appreciated?
Minnesota Opera is getting it right.
Oh, well.
I
didn't mean for it. You don't have to say us.
You really don't. You don't have to.
That's very nice.
But look at those cast lists. You look like, let's take even the Fix. It's a very specific era of baseball, and there are all sorts of people of color in it. Why? Because you can. World hasn't ended. Great singer. You still told a great story. Things like I see I remember seeing like the Traviata dress a couple years ago and thinking, wow, this is such a beautifully diverse stage. There are people of all sorts of different looks and all sorts in leading roles, supporting roles in the chorus, but you see different looking people all over the place. God, this is so beautiful. That's what I want it to look like. And, you know, I've encountered some places that, you know, will hide behind this idea of artistic discretion, you know, like we want to be on the forefront, we want to make a difference, blah 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 blah. And they're like, well, how about, you know, some even like compulsory hiring, you know, let's try and check as many boxes as possible. And it's like, well, you know, we still need to maintain artistic discretion, but you know, who's checking off as many boxes as possible? Minnesota Opera. You look at every single one of those cast lists, you know, you're trying to get a whole variety of people in every show, it appears to me, because they're great artists. And for some of these little semantic traditional things, who cares? World's not going to end. Opera's not going to end. And sometimes, every now and then too, like, you can get some real magic. You know, sorry to talk about myself, but I do think this is a good example. Like when I was casting Candide, it was a predominantly white cast. And not only was it white, like there were a lot of tall people there too. So if the moment I turn around my blue jacket as like, you know, the short yellow kid in a sea of white, you know, you automatically have an other there. You don't need to spend 15 minutes explaining the world that you're in, showing why this person is an other. They're just immediately, the moment they show their face, an other. And there is also a lot of ground artistically, I think, organizations could be making by viewing some things in these ways. You know, it can really up the ante for some of these stories. There's something incredibly profound, I think we would all agree, about seeing people of color fall in love with each other on an opera stage, because we never see it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Just the mere fact that two people of color encounter each other and fall in love is such a profound thing. Even in La Boheme, which we've all seen so many times, you know, it's completely different through that lens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember that that production of Traviata so well, because I just remember, you know, we were going through the diversity charter and, you know, getting that, you know, talking to the staff, talking to the board, talking to leadership, and getting all of these questions. And we ended up putting that artistic statement of belief in there. And I think part of that was because of Traviata, because it's like, it just makes everything so much richer. It doesn't take away from anything. It just makes everything just more abundant and beautiful and lovely. And why not? Like, nobody's ever like given me a convincing reason why not, other than like, you know, maintaining white supremacy.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the fix also, because I remember Jasmine Habersham being in that, and like, even though she wasn't like the lead of the story, she was a lead. And I was just like, oh, it's so nice to watch a Black woman in love, and it's not about her dying at the end. And it's not about anybody getting shot, or she stays alive through the whole thing, like, and is shown in the supportive, loving relationship. Oh, how refreshing. Yeah, we love to see it. More of that, please.
Yeah, the power that being able to see that kind of representation has for people in their formative years is kind of unparalleled, right? And, you know, of course, I haven't been here to see a lot of these Minnesota Opera productions, but while I was in New York, you know, in high school, actually, seeing Carolyn Blackwell as Cunegonde in Candide on Broadway was a true revelation for me. And it's something that, you know, 25 years later, like, it's still very present in my mind, not just because of the caliber of her singing, which, you know, I mean, in a Broadway show, it was stunning on top of everything else. But just the fact that it was a thing happening. Similarly, remembering Jesus Garcia and Janina Burnett and some other folks in the Boslerm and La Boheme about 5 or 6 years later, it was just an instance of, look how good this is, right? You heard this. There should not be an ongoing question about what we do when we have these opportunities, right? And it's taken quite a while for the conversation even to feel like it's picking up momentum, but at least on the end of the administrative side and having actually the benefit of having some colleagues who have similar roles that Rocky and Paige and I have at other companies, it means that some of these conversations are going to be able to happen. Who knows where some companies are going to land and the reasons for them electing not to make some of these choices, but I do hope that we see more boldness in casting and more embracing of, this is the magic that happens when we just give in to the fact that, you know, talent has been democratically distributed across the world. Opportunity has not been. And that's the thing that I think we really have to push back on.
And I think it will yield dividends. We've seen it already.
Yeah,
it will
absolutely.
yield dividends.
Absolutely.
Well, Andrew, I think that is a wonderful note to go out on. Hopeful. I believe it'll yield dividends as well. So do you want to let everyone know, like, do you have anything coming up that you'd like to promote, or your social media channels? Where can people follow you and hear your beautiful music?
I've got a Facebook fan page, but, you know, like everyone, we're just kind of waiting for things to reopen. I've got a nice busy spring, but just kind of biding my time till then.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, everyone go follow Andrew Stenson on Facebook, and make sure to watch out for this spring when you can hopefully go see him live. So thank you so much for being with us, Andrew. We really appreciate it.
Pleasure's all mine. You're all wonderful human beings. Thank you so much for the work that you all are doing and for making a big freaking difference.
Oh, stop.
Thank you.
Happy Juneteenth.
Yes, happy Juneteenth. Yes. And we'll be right back. All right, and we are back. Thank you once again to the incomparable Andrew Stenson for that wonderful chat. And even though we are on vacation, we we would be remiss if we did not leave you with a Pure Black Joy, a PB&J, a little snack for your soul to take you into the weekend. And this, you know, we've figured, you know, we've got the Olympics coming up. It is one of my favorite times of the year. Every 2 years, for whatever reason, all of a sudden I'm into the shot put and handball, and in the winter, like the luge and the double luge. But, you know, I guess this will just be like our little Olympics special, because there are just, you know, watching the trials a couple of weeks ago, there are just some Black people out here just doing it. And we just want to shout out all those people.
So, you know, the People magazine actually did a spread on the Black women on various Olympic teams. I get teams or category fields?
Teams,
genres?
I think is right.
I think
I think
teams.
so. Sports ball is not my forte.
You would never be able to tell the genetic stock from which I come from the ways that I have rejected anything related to sports. But I do jump on this Olympic bandwagon every couple of summers. And
although I will say that I have won the Minnesota Opera Fantasy Football League twice now.
Oh, wow.
But that's just because I'm psychotically competitive.
And I will
So maybe you're into sports those few months out of the year.
Yes.
and I'll be impressed with that, even if I don't know what it means to be a fantasy football. Like,
Don't worry about it. I could explain it to you, but I kind of couldn't.
but it was kind of great to like look at that spread in people and see actually that there were so many Black women on teams that I was not anticipating, right? Like I knew about a couple of swimmers. I certainly knew about Simone Biles. I mean, she's the greatest thing since sliced bread, clearly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But it was also kind of, amazing to be like, oh, we also do rugby. Like there was a whole lot of takeaways from that just let me know that, Black excellence is alive and well and living in places if you know to look. So I'm inspired now to look a lot more into sports and just see what we're out here doing and see all the records we're breaking and start celebrating some people who are doing things every bit as obscure as singing Carmen and Aida variously around the country. We can celebrate this too and really take some time to encourage these people with these incredible accomplishments coming out of rugby and swimming and all kinds of other things that I know nothing of.
Absolutely, because I mean, it's just amazing. Like, one of the things about the Olympics that gets me is always when it's like, like they grew up in a small town in Iowa and they had to like sell their shoes to get equipment for fencing, and the family sold the farm so that she could go to gymnastics school or whatever. But like, thinking about like, all of these Black athletes and just the way that they have just come from so many different places around the country, and we all know what it is to, no matter where you're from, to be Black in America, the particular struggles that can come with, and the particular hurdles. See what I did there? Hurdles. That you have to jump over. And so it's amazing. Like when you look at somebody, like Simone Manuel, who's, swimming the 50 free, or Allison Felix, five Olympic teams now.
Whew.
And just had a baby, and it was complicated, and she was able to come back from that and run her way back onto another Olympic team. It's just incredible. It really is. And I don't know, did you see that the woman, I don't remember what her name is, Christina, but she qualified in the hurdles, and she was wearing little Doritos, Cool Ranch Doritos bags as earrings, and I was oh yes.
I am here for winning in style. I love it. But speaking from, like people from small towns, not that my town is small and all that, but also shout out to Donald Scott, also Black, and he qualified. He is the track and field coach for the high school that I went to.
That is so amazing.
Lincoln High School in Ypsilanti, Michigan. So shout out to him.
Can you imagine if your coach or your PE teacher was like an Olympian, and it's like, climb the rope? Okay.
I mean, but that's another cool thing about the Olympics is just that it covers so many sports and people from all over the world, that there could be somebody from just your little town that you think is random who makes it to the Olympics. It's supposed to represent the whole world. So that was cool. That was really cool. I'm happy
amazing.
for him.
That's so cool. It's like my friend Maureen, she went to high school with the dude that won The Bachelorette last season, but I guess it's not really the same. Well, we hope you all enjoy the Olympics. It's going to be amazing. 2 weeks of super fun. And shout out to all of those people. I hope all y'all get y'all's medals and represent us. And thank you so much. And we're going to go back to our vacation. Real quick, shout out to the Nat Ministry. Go follow them.
Yeah.
Anti-hustle culture. Let's all just go rest for a minute. And we will be back in 2 weeks with another fabulous show. As usual, rate, review, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Share us with your friends. And write in at thescore@mnopera.org. And until then, do y'all have any words of wisdom to leave us with? I'll take that as a no. Because we need to rest. Because we need to go back to the couch or to the beach or wherever we are.
I was gonna say go read the Nat Ministry.
Pour yourself a glass of wine, run a hot bath, go read the Nat Ministry. All right, y'all. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Bye, everybody.